One of the coolest perks about growing microgreens is that it's relatively easy and inexpensive to purchase supplies when you're first getting set up. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you'll need to get you up and running to grow your own. First, you need to figure out the space you plan to grow in. And if you plan to grow more than just a couple trays, the next thing you'll need is a shelving rack. Then you'll need trays, soil, seeds, light, and water. But before we jump into it, I just wanted to say that it's always best to start small and make sure you enjoy the process and that it fits with the flow of your life. If it turns out to be something you like, then you can easily scale up. But if you end up not liking it, you don't need to stress because you haven't invested very much into it yet. With that said, let's get into it. As I mentioned in the previous video, microgreens typically thrive in the same indoor climate as us humans, with their ideal temperature range being between 65 to 75 degrees with a 40 to 60% humidity level. So if you can get close to these conditions in the space you plan to grow in, they should thrive. There also needs to be some kind of airflow to avoid running into mold issues. A simple desktop fan or a standing fan, as long as it's in proximity to your setup, will work fine. And if the room you've chosen already has decent airflow, you might not need a fan at all. And don't forget, a space that you can easily clean up the occasional spill, like a kitchen, a utility room, or a climate-controlled garage, will be ideal for growing microgreens. Unless you're attempting to just grow microgreens next to a sunny window, you'll most likely need a wire shelving rack. And the rack serves multiple purposes. It provides both shelf space for your microgreens and also a place to mount your grow lights just above your trays. It also takes advantage of vertical space, allowing you to grow a lot of microgreens in a really small footprint. For growing in 10-20 trays, you'll want a wire shelf rack that's 48 inches wide and 18 to 24 inches deep. This fits 4 10-20 trays perfectly. When you start shopping around, look for the NSF wire shelving racks, the kind you see in restaurants and industrial kitchens. They're food safe, easy to assemble, and easy to find, either online or from your local hardware store. The height of your rack depends on how many shelves you install. You can assemble a small rack with just 2 or 3 shelves or a taller rack with up to 6 shelves. Regardless, the top shelf is just used for mounting grow lights on the underside and then storing trays and supplies on the top. When you're setting up your shelving rack, space your shelves about 10 to 12 inches apart. This will be the distance between the tray of microgreens and the grow lights above them. You can set up a shorter rack to sit on a table or a countertop, or a taller rack can sit directly on the floor. And a lot of them come with caster wheels on the bottom so you can easily move them around if you need to. Let's talk about trays. If you want to start out really small, you can grow microgreens in sproutlet trays. These are only 6 inches wide and 7 inches deep and fit right on your windowsill. And the cool thing about sproutlet trays is that you don't need to deal with soil, and they're self-watering. They have these little biodegradable grow mats that come included. And the grow mat fits into a mesh tray with a little slot on the side with a tab that goes through to wick up moisture from a water reservoir just below that. When you sprinkle the seeds on the moistened grow mat, they'll germinate and grow all the way until they're ready for harvest. It's pretty sweet. Click the screen here if you want to learn more about sproutlet trays. If you decide you want to grow more volume so you can use microgreens as like the base of a salad or include a larger quantity for green smoothies or shakes, really trying to take advantage of the health benefits, you'll need to grow them in larger trays. The most commonly used trays for microgreens are 10-20 nursery trays, and as the name suggests, they're 10 inches wide and 20 inches deep. You can pick these up at just about any local garden supply store for a few dollars a piece. Make sure to get one perforated tray with drainage holes and then one solid bottom tray. The perforated tray nests into the solid bottom tray. Having good drainage is key for a healthy crop of microgreens. While standard 10-20 trays are inexpensive and a great way to get you going when you're first starting out, they're pretty flimsy and will need to be replaced sooner than you'd think. Just make sure that you use 2 hands when you're moving them so the weight of the soil doesn't crack the tray. Moving on to seeds. A common question about seeds when you're first starting out growing microgreens is, are microgreen seeds any different from regular seeds? The short answer is no, but there's a lot of nuances that set apart the seeds that are specifically intended for growing microgreens. The first one is quantity. Seeding a whole 10-20 tray of microgreens takes a lot of seed. You literally sprinkle it across the tray like salt and pepper. If you were using regular little seed packets like you get in the garden store, that would cost an arm and a leg just to sow one tray of microgreens. That's why microgreens seed vendors sell their seed in bulk, making it way more affordable. Microgreens seed vendors have also spent a lot of time trialing different varieties and finding the ones that grow best for sprouts. This makes for a more consistent quality result when you're growing microgreens. When comparing different vendors selling microgreen seeds, go with certified organic if you can find it. And also check if they conduct pathogen testing on their seeds. Contaminated seeds are way more common than you'd think, and that can lead to frustrating poor results for you as the grower, even when you're doing everything right. For top quality, certified organic, pathogen tested seeds, make sure to check out this link to Modern Grower for microgreen seeds. The next thing you'll need to grow microgreens is soil. And while you can grow microgreens without soil, as I mentioned when talking about the sproutlet tray, when you're growing them in higher volume in 10-20 trays, you'll have a more consistent result if you grow them in soil that has at least some degree of nutrients. You'll also want a soil mix that has really good drainage and one that doesn't have larger chunks in it. This can be wood chips or any other larger pieces of random organic material. A smooth, fine potting mix ensures a good seed to soil contact and also makes it easier for the root systems to form without any obstructions. Some good soils to start with would be HP Pro Mix, Sunshine Mix No. 4, or Happy Frog Potting Mix. Check out the links in the description to learn more about these. While you won't need any light during the first 3 to 4 days of germination, when those first 2 little seed leaves emerge on your sprouting microgreens, they'll need a light source to photosynthesize and start greening up. It is possible to grow microgreens right next to a sunny window, but the growth can be really sporadic, depending on the intensity of the sunlight, the hours per day of sunlight, which will depend on the time of year where you live, and the orientation of your house. So if you're serious about growing a consistent crop of microgreens, no matter what time of year or what zone you live in, you'll want to invest in some grow lights and have them running for about 16 hours a day. Some of the newer LED shop lights actually work great for growing microgreens. And the good news is they're both relatively cheap to buy and energy efficient to run. A great starter is the T5 Barina LED shop light. These are 4 feet wide and fit perfectly under the shelves of your grow rack. You'll need 3 of these lights per shelf, and you just zip tie them to the underside of each wire shelf and you're good to go. And last but not least, you'll need to provide water to keep your microgreens growing. You'll water them pretty heavily right after you plant your seeds, and then wait for the next 3 to 4 days until after germination before you water again. At this point, you'll put the trays under the light, and from there on out, you typically need to water just once a day until they're ready for harvest. At this stage, it's best to go with what they call bottom watering. That simply means you lift up the top tray, the one with the drainage holes, and pour a little water into the bottom tray, the one with no holes, and this allows the roots to drink up the water from below. By doing this, you avoid knocking over the sprouts by watering them from above, and you also reduce the potential for mold issues by keeping your microgreens dry. So when it comes to supplies for watering, I'd recommend a half-gallon hand-pump garden sprayer for watering your seeds, and then a standard watering can for bottom watering. If you decide to set up your seeding area in your backyard or your garage with access to a hose, make sure to use a spray nozzle that has a gentle shower setting so you don't displace the seeds for that initial watering. So there it is, everything you need to know to get you started on your journey to growing microgreens. All the links to the supplies I mentioned are in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please smash that like and subscribe button. It helps us so much to keep making this kind of free educational content. In the next video, I'll go into greater detail on everything you need to know about buying and setting up your microgreens shelving rack. And from all of us here at Modern Grower, we wish you the best on your growing journey.